20,000 people, 18 hours, no warning. It is August 24th, 79 AD. Right now, at this exact moment, a baker named Marcus is pulling bread from his oven. His biggest problem today is delivering 81 loaves to a local politician. He has 4 hours to live. He does not know it. Nobody in Pompeii knows it. The mountain they have lived beside their entire lives, the green, peaceful giant they call Vesuvius, has been silent for 300 years. Their grandparents never saw it move. It is about to move. Before the world ended, it began as it always did. Dawn breaks over the Bay of Naples, casting a warm golden light on the paved streets of Pompeii. The air is cool and smells of the sea, mingled with the scent of jasmine from wealthy gardens and the first promise of baking bread from the city's many bakeries. The sounds of a city waking up echo against the stone buildings, the clatter of cartwheels on the well-worn basalt roads, the distant bleating of sheep being driven to market, and the murmur of vendors setting up their stalls in the forum, their voices a familiar, cheerful hum. The great forum, the heart of the city, is already coming to life. Sunlight catches the white limestone columns of the portico as politicians and businessmen arrive to debate and deal in the shadow of the Grand Basilica, the city's courthouse. At the northern end, the Temple of Jupiter stands with Vesuvius as its backdrop, a symbol of Roman power against nature's own. Along the bustling streets, the shutters of countless workshops and storefronts are thrown open. The sharp smell of fermenting fish from a garum factory competes with the aroma of spices from the Macelum, the central market. Hungry patrons gather at a thermopolium, a street-side cafe, for a quick breakfast of bread and cheese, their conversations adding to the city's rising chorus. Not far away at the Grand Amphitheater, the silence of the morning holds the ghosts of recent spectacles. Capable of holding 20 spectators, it is a source of civic pride and still the subject of gossip after a violent riot between Pompeians and visiting fans from Nuceria led the emperor to ban games for a decade. Vesuvius, its single, verdant peak, a comforting presence, looms peacefully against the blue sky. Children chase each other through narrow alleyways, their laughter bouncing off walls covered in vibrant frescoes and sprawling graffiti. In the grand villas, the wealthy stir, while in the cramped workshops and apartments, slaves and freedmen are already hard at work. Pompeii is alive, a city of commerce, ambition, politics, and pleasure. It is a microcosm of Rome itself, humming with an energy that feels as if it will last forever. Hours before the sun, Marcus's day had begun in darkness, his face lit only by the glow of his oven. A freedman, he had bought his own freedom from slavery, and now ran this successful bakery. With a wife and 2 young children, his pride was kneaded into every loaf. The rhythmic work was a comfort, the familiar warmth of the fire a friend. He could feel the city waking around him, through the soles of his feet, the distant rumble of life, a steady beat to his work. These 81 loaves were more than just bread. They were his family's security, his standing in the community. He was a simple man, grounded in the elements of flour, water, and a familiar, comforting fire. He did not know another, far more powerful fire was building just miles away. As he worked, he imagined presenting the perfect loaves, the politician's nod of approval, the extra coins that would mean a new toy for his son. When the mountain roars, Marcus stumbles outside. Where the single peak of Vesuvius once stood, there is now a column of smoke and ash, churning impossibly high into the sky. A strange light rain begins to fall. It is not water, but small, white-gray pumice stones. They make a soft, hissing sound as they land on the hot terracotta tiles of his roof. A metallic, sulfurous smell cuts through the familiar scent of his bakery, stinging his nostrils. He hesitates. His first instinct is to secure his shop, to save the life he built. He rushes back inside, the floor now trembling constantly. The air grows thick and heavy, making each breath a conscious effort. Outside, the world is descending into madness. The soft patter of pumice quickly becomes a dense, heavy barrage. The steady patter of pumice on the roof becomes a deafening roar like 1,000 hammers. He can hear shouting and screams from the street, but his focus is on the groaning wooden beams above him. The sky goes from gray to black, plunging the afternoon into a terrifying, premature night. The weight on the roof is building foot by foot. He hears a sharp crack from a supporting beam, then a low rumble from down the street. The neighbor's roof collapses. Panic wars with pride. He could run, abandon his livelihood, and try to find his family in the chaos. But everything he has is here. For Marcus, this hesitation is a fatal mistake. The roof of his bakery, groaning under feet of volcanic stone, implodes, crushing him and his 81 loaves of bread. On a nearby street, in a lavish home known as the House of the Golden Bracelet, a man we will call Lucius is counting his coins. Gold and silver denarii are spread before him, profits from his latest shipment of garum, the pungent fish sauce beloved across the empire. His home is a monument to success, filled with vibrant frescoes and intricate mosaics. The air is perfumed with expensive oils, and the only sound is the pleasant clinking of his money and the gentle gurgle of a fountain in his private garden. Lucius lives in a world of comfort and certainty, but lately, small tremors have occasionally rattled the wine glasses on his shelf. The locals are used to them, but as a cautious man, Lucius feels a flicker of unease. He dismisses it. Business is good, and in this empire, wealth is a fortress. He runs a hand over the smooth, cool marble of his table, reassured by its solidity, its permanence. When the great explosion shatters his window, scattering his coins, he runs to his garden. He stares in horror at the monstrous cloud, his first feeling a cold anger. This will be bad for business, but as the hail of pumice stones begins, he realizes it will be far worse. The delicate white stones bounce off his prized statues and crush the petals of his rare flowers. The sky, once a brilliant blue, turns a sickening gray, then a terrifying sunless black. Lucius could have fled, but his wealth tethers him to his home. He gathers his gold and jewelry and waits with 3 other people under a staircase, hoping the storm will pass. For hours, they huddle in the suffocating dark. The rhythmic drumming of pumice on the roof is a relentless torment, punctuated by the deep groan of the house settling under the immense weight. The air grows hot and suffocating, thick with an abrasive dust that coats the back of his throat and turns every whisper into a ragged cough. He can hear the distant crash of collapsing buildings and the muffled screams of his neighbors, sounds that fool a world away from his protected space. Hope gives way to a grim certainty. His gold feels like a useless, heavy weight in his hands. For centuries, it was believed this was a family, but recent DNA analysis revealed that none of the 4 were genetically related. There were strangers, bound only by a desperate hope for survival. Their refuge becomes their tomb. In the gladiators' barracks near the amphitheater, a Thracian fighter we will call CELADUS tends to a wound. He is a celebrity in Pompeii, his name graffiti on the city walls. Though owned by a trainer, his life is one of privilege compared to other slaves. He eats well, trains hard, and is adored by the crowds. The barracks smell of sweat, oil, and worn leather. The clang of weights and the boisterous shouts of his fellow fighters are the soundtrack to his life. He dreams of winning his freedom and walking out of the amphitheater, a citizen. But for now, he is property, his life dictated by the games. As the ground shudders for a moment, he pauses. The other gladiators mutter, but the guards do not even look up. The walls of the barracks are thick, a prison, but a secure one. He feels the tremor deep in his bones, an unfamiliar vibration that puts him on edge, a fighter's instinct, sensing a different kind of danger. The mountains roar is louder than any crowd, and the barracks erupt in panic. The fighters rush the main gate, but the guards have barred it, shouting that order must be maintained. As the light fails, CELADUS pounds on the heavy door, his famous fists now useless against the unyielding timber. The air turns acrid, the smell of sulfur mixing with the dust shaken from the ceiling. Panic spreads like a contagion, turning trained killers into a desperate, trapped mob. The hours drag on in darkness and terror. The pumice fall muffles the world outside, creating an eerie, claustrophobic silence punctuated by coughs and prayers. The initial adrenaline and rage of the trapped gladiators fades into a shared, suffocating dread. The strongest among them make futile attempts to break down the stone walls, their efforts only answered by the dead thud of their fists. The air gets hotter, each breath a searing intake of dust. Around dawn, the volcanic column collapses, triggering the first pyroclastic surge. A low rumble grows into a terrifying hiss. It is a superheated cloud of gas and ash, moving at over 100 miles per hour with temperatures reaching 300 degrees Celsius. The surge blasts through the building as openings. The heat is instantaneous, cooking the body from the inside out and causing a final, agonizing muscle spasm. The celebrated gladiator dies, not in the arena, but in a dark, sealed room. A Roman soldier we will call GAIUS walks the bustling forum, with polished armor and his spear held just so. He is an instrument of Roman order, a symbol of the empire's unyielding power. He stands guard, observing the marketplace chaos, the disciplined detachment. The sun is hot on his helmet, and the air is filled with the smells of fruit, spices, and unwashed bodies. He is trained to filter it all out, to be a rock of composure amidst the flow of civilian life. His job is not to participate in the chaos of life, but to ensure this slice of Rome continues undisturbed. He has been trained to stand his post, no matter what. Duty is his religion, his resolve as hard as the stones beneath his feet. He feels the faint early tremors, but dismisses them as locals do. An earthquake is nature's problem. His problem is keeping the peace. When the eruption begins, the forum descends into screaming chaos. People knock over market stalls, their cries of terror replacing the morning's cheerful bargaining. A senator he was, just watching runs past, his face pale, shouting for GAIUS to flee for his life. But GAIUS flinches and does not move. He grips his spear, knuckles white, as pumice stones the size of walnuts begin to fall around him. He is Roman. His purpose is to be the calm in the storm. The world goes dark. He stands alone as the city empties. The air becomes a choking fog of ash, making his polished armor look like gray stone. The pumice begins to pile at his feet, a silent gray snowdrift. He can taste the grit on his teeth and feel it stinging his eyes. Through the long hours, he hears the city dying around him, the splintering crack of ancient timbers, the crash of marble statues toppling from their pedestals. Lightning from the ash cloud briefly illuminates a hellscape of destruction. Through the gloom, he must see the lowing, terrifying pyroclastic surge rolling towards him through the blackness, a wave of fire and shadow consuming everything in its path. Others might have turned and run, but GAIUS holds his post. The thermal shock engulfs him, killing him before his body can even fall. He is encased in ash, frozen upright for eternity, a ghostly sentinel at his post, a symbol of an empire that believed itself indestructible. Our final fate is a young woman, a freed slave we will call AMARA. Her world is centered on the two small children clinging to her tunic. Recent DNA evidence reveals Pompeii's diversity, with many residents having roots in the Eastern Mediterranean. AMARA is part of this cosmopolitan fabric. Her life is a daily struggle, but one filled with the simple joy of her children's laughter and the warmth of their hands in hers. She has no wealth or status, only her freedom and her children. Buying fruit at a market stall, she feels the ground tremble slightly. The vendor laughs it off, but AMARA pulls her children closer. For the poor, life is always precarious, and her instincts are sharp. She looks up at the mountain, and for some reason, it feels watchful. A sense of dread, cold and immediate, prickles her skin. When the eruption hits, AMARA acts on pure instinct. She scoops up her youngest, grabs the hand of the other, and she runs. She does not know where she is going, only that she must get away from the falling sky. The streets are a nightmare of surging crowds and a blizzard of pumice stone. The noise is overwhelming, a constant roar from the sky and the panicked screams of hundreds of people. The air is thick with a blinding, choking dust that makes her eyes water and her children cough. Disoriented in the sudden blackness, she navigates by keeping one hand on the walls of the buildings, stumbling over fallen bodies and abandoned carts. She pushes through the desperate mob, her only thought to protect her children from being trampled. She heads south toward the Nocera Gate, joining a group of 13 people fleeing through what is now called the Garden of the Fugitives. They're in an open area, former vineyard, and for a moment, it might have seemed they would make it. The air here feels slightly cooler, the density of the falling pumice slightly less. She can feel the cooler air of the countryside ahead, a promise of safety, but they are caught in the open when the next pyroclastic surge hits. The final moments are heartbreakingly human, with adults shielding children. AMARA pulls her children to her, trying to cover them with her own body as they die together. Their desperate flight ended just short of escape.
Ancient Pompeii.
For nearly 1700 years, the city and its stories lay dormant, a ghost under the vineyards. When archaeologists began to uncover Pompeii, they found not just a city, but a photograph of death. The 5 fates we followed are drawn from the evidence left behind, from skeletons in a collapsed bakery and the tragic group in the Garden of the Fugitives. Modern science, especially DNA analysis, is rewriting these stories. It reveals a more complex picture of who these people were, like the man with the golden bracelet, who was not related to the child he held. The story of Pompeii is not finished. It is a story that continues to be told with every new discovery. If you find these human stories from the past as compelling as we do, subscribe to our channel for more journeys into history. The plaster casts of Pompeii are not art. They are the final moments of real people that show us how a baker, merchant, a gladiator, a soldier, and a mother lived their last day on Earth. They are a powerful, chilling reminder that beneath the grand sweep of history, there are always individual human beings. Their city was wiped from the map in 18 hours of hell, but in their silent, frozen forms, their stories endure. So, what is a pyroclastic surge? Imagine an avalanche, but not of snow. This is an avalanche of superheated gas, toxic vapors, and pulverized rock, moving at speeds that can exceed 100 miles per hour. It is a ground-hugging cloud hotter than any oven, with temperatures that can reach 300 degrees Celsius or 570 degrees Fahrenheit. It does not just burn, it flash cooks everything in its path in an instant. Its speed is terrifying, covering miles in minutes and making escape on foot impossible, and you cannot breathe it. The cloud is a suffocating mixture of fine ash that turns to cement in the lungs. It is one of nature's most destructive and inescapable forces, a wave of instant death.